Greetings, traveler.
There are 5 skills in Hearthstone Battlegrounds that are more important than any others. You get the 8000 MMR in no time by focusing on them instead of everything at the same time. This will not be generic advice such as watch players better than you. You receive specific knowledge you can apply to immediately improve your results. I've been coaching Battlegrounds for years now, and that experience has taught me what to focus on to get the most amount of impact in the shortest amount of time. We'll be going through these 5 skills one by one, leaving the best one for last. Starting with curve with your shops. A big mistake a lot of players make is deciding which curve to play before they've even seen their shop. It's okay to always play the same curve when you're just starting out. If you want to reach 8000 MMR and beyond, you'll have to start curving with your shops. Chief's mantra is, don't buy trash. Simply put, if you were to spend your gold buying subpar minions instead of leveling, you've already lost. If you choose to level instead, you might get unlucky again, but at least now you have a chance to get good minions to recover. Let's look at where this commonly takes place. Turns 3 and 4. On turn 3, your next actions will depend on what your shop and board look like. You should almost always double buy whenever you have Recruit, Lasso, Chef's Choice, or Cry Foul. Alternatively, look for economy units that can generate minions or gold, like Scout, Elemental, Tad, and Shell Collector. These allow you to buy 2 minions without having to sell your starter unit. This way you'll have a bigger board and more gold to spend later. If you started with an economy unit such as Busker that you played on turn 2, or Alley Cat, you can use that spare gold to buy 2 strong units from the shop, such as a pair of Eternal Knights, Party Elemental plus Cyclone combo, or even more economy to set you up for the mid game. You almost never want to roll on turn 3. The only exception to that rule is if you have a great 1-cost spell such as Careful Investment or Coin, and you really don't want to sell your starter unit. So what if your shop doesn't have any of these options? This is where you repeat the mantra, don't buy trash, and you level to tier 3 instead. This is known as going 3 on 3, and unless you started with an economy unit, your board will be empty because you'll have to sell your starter unit to get the 6 gold. It's a scary curve, but it must be part of your toolbox, because if you were to buy the bad options on tier 2, you are still losing fights. But now you have very little hope of recovering from the bad start. On turn 4, you'll have similar options based on your shops. If you're blessed by Bob and your tier 2 shop has 2 great units again, you can spend your 6 gold to buy them. If your tier 2 shop doesn't have these minions, it's better to level to tier 3 on turn 4. Because you'll have 1 gold left over with this curve, it's great to have a 1-cost spell in your shop to spend all of your gold. You could also sell your worst minion to cast a 2-cost spell. If you went 3 on 3 without an economy minion, you'll have to double buy this turn, which is why this curve is riskier. A lot will depend on your first tier 3 shop. However, if you did have an economy unit, there is one last resort available to you, 4 on 4. This is where you sell your only minion and level again. You should only do this if your tier 3 shop is horrible. 4 on 4 is a very risky curve. You'll have 7 gold next turn, which means that you can roll 1 time to find 2 great 4-drops. If you don't, you won't stabilize in time and get an 8th place. However, just as with the 3 on 3 curve, it is still better to make this play than to buy horrible minions on tier 3. So how do you know which are the best minions for you to buy? Our sponsor HS Replay has all this data available on their website. For this tier 3 example, you simply go to the minions tab and filter for tier 3 minions on turns 4 and 5. This way you'll see which minions have the highest play impact, meaning that you're more likely to win the game if you bought them on those turns. This feature is for tier 7 subscribers only, but they have amazing data available for free as well. On the comps tab, you can see which strategies are the strongest in the current meta. We'll come back to this later for our final skill.
I'll be back.
Now that you know how to tackle turns 3 and 4, let's look at when to level to 5. This is the most difficult leveling decision in almost all of your games. That's because 1 to 4 has a lot more structure to it. Once you're on tier 4, you can technically level to 5 on the very next turn, or spend a few turns stabilizing. There were even strategies in previous metas where you never leveled to 5. There are 3 things you need to take into consideration to make this decision a lot easier for you. Number 1. Will I go below 15 health if I level to 5 this turn? Protecting your damage cap is incredibly important. If you want to climb, placing 7th or 8th will set you back a lot, costing you a ton of MMR. Losing your damage cap early is a huge risk. Even if you successfully stabilize on tier 5 afterwards, you can always get an unlucky combat or face a high roller and get knocked out. Consider having more than 15 health, bad RNG insurance. If it's turn 7, you'll need 26 health or more because you can only take 10 damage that turn. This means that if you take the full damage cap later on, you'll still have at least 1 health remaining. From turn 8 and beyond, 31 health is preferable, giving you at least 2 turns to stabilize. You should also take a look at your opponent's profile. Have they been winning a lot? Do they have triples? They level this turn as well. And lastly, check your own board. Are your minions strong? Do you even have 7 minions on your board yet? Number 2. Which minions can you hit on tier 4? If you have Soul Rewinder on the board, this enables you to hit cards such as Imposing Percussionist and Malchezaar. These are great to make your board stronger and will make leveling to 5 a lot safer. Rickety Repair Bot, Marquee Ticker, or Grease Bot are all excellent options to get stronger on tier 4. Make sure you check which minion types are in before you start rolling. Number 3. Could I take a triple straight into a 6-drop? Are there good 6-drops this game? Great early tier 6 minions are economy generators. Examples are Ignition Specialist and Silivos. In the past, we've had cards such as Neon Agent and Orgozoa. These are great early triples because they give you more resources, making your next turns more impactful than those of your opponents. Strong combat minions such as Arid Atrocity or Party Guest are great as well, because you're very likely to win your next few fights, saving you a ton of health. There are many more things we could consider, but the goal is to give you a manageable checklist that will help you make the right decision more than 90% of the time, which is why we focus on these 3 important questions. Going to tier 6, on the other hand, is not as important of a decision in my experience. Once you're on tier 5, you can now triple into 6 drops, giving you access to every minion in the game. I'll generally go to tier 6 early if I'm absolutely dominating the game due to a lucky start. Other than that, I'll check my deck tracker to see which minions are on tier 6 for the composition I'm playing. Now that you're leveling correctly, you'll be faced with a new problem. How do I get the best result once I'm in the top 4? The damage cap is now gone and you could be knocked out of the game in any fight. For these fights, you should be going into them as strong as possible. In order to do this, you must scout the lobby and know what your opponents are playing. Generally speaking, you'll face 3 types of boards and they'll have a rock, paper, scissors balance to them. Big stats. This is the most common type of board. Usually this will be your elementals, Quillboar, pirates, nagas, demons, and Caligo's dragons. If you're playing this, you must scout and be wary of murlocs. They can use venom to trade very efficiently versus your board and take your win away. Use combos such as blasters, selfless Titus to protect your best minions. This will destroy enemy Leroys and shields while simultaneously shielding your own board, protecting you from venom. Ironically, one of the best Murloc scam counters is your own Murloc scam. Run your own golden base skill and put Belcher and Atrocity in your hand to soak up the opponent's venom minions. If most of your opponents in the top 4 are playing big stats themselves, you should aim to keep a few strong minions on your board and replace the rest with minions such as Leroy, base skill plus Belcher combo, or whichever scam card is currently in your game. It's incredibly likely that a random 100-100 minion will be less efficient than one of these cards versus a big stat board. For this reason, it's important that you concentrate your stats on 3 to 4 minions. This way you can easily sell or mutinous weaker minions and replace them for the endgame fights. Big stats are a counter to our next strategy, namely token strategies. Usually this will be undead and beasts. Versus these strategies, poison scam cards will be useless. Instead, focus on having a lot of health to tank their tokens. You can also employ combos such as Hawkstrider plus Blaster and Titus to destroy their minions, if they didn't succeed in buffing their board out of range. Sindore is usually a good bet as well, seeing as they often run a Taunt plus Reborn minion. If you're playing the token comp, start countering their counter. Use cards such as Azerite Empowerment to AoE buff your board out of range of the Blaster tech. If you know they run a Sindore, consider putting your Taunt Reborn minion in position number 1, to hopefully get the Reborn value by attacking first. Token strategies are really strong versus the next type, which is Poison Scam. The best way to protect yourself versus Poison Scam is to add a ton of Soakers to your board. These are usually Death Rattle minions, which can absorb the Venom charges, or Leroys if they're not buffed out of range. Examples would be Atrocity, Mound, or Base Skill. Bonus points if the summons are big enough to take the Belchers or Leroys out in one hit. You'll usually want to put your huge minions all the way in the back to prevent them from being dumb and face planting into the Venoms. The exception to this rule is if you know they have a Taunted Brand or a similar weak card. In that case, position 1 is the safest place for them. Don't do this more than one fight in a row, because your opponent might adapt and taunt a venomous minion instead. If the opponent's board is unbuffed, Blaster is a great way to destroy multiple Venoms or Leroys in one hit as well. If you're playing the Poison Scam, well, strictly hypothetically speaking of course, not like you'd actually resort to such a thing, you'll want to buff your Venom minions and Leroys out of Blaster range. Use cards such as Azerad Empowerment again, or Murloc buffs to keep them safe.
He's like, what?
Scam everywhere! So much scam, I can't see!
A higher level adaptation is to move some of your own Venoms to the back to make sure they don't die before the opponent's big minions get to attack. You can add your own Atrocity and Filler cards to trade with theirs. Poison Scam does get destroyed by our last strategy, mechs. Mechs don't fit the rock, paper, scissors analogy perfectly. They do well versus most big stat comps due to their high damage. They're quite resilient versus Poison Scam as well due to their shields. Most mech boards, however, will struggle versus token comps, seeing as the Divine Shields get much less value in these fights. The two things you need to be aware of, both as a mech player and against, are Blaster. If you're versus mech, this is a great counter as it will catch a lot of mech players off guard. If you're the mech player and you suspect the Blaster, or you know they have it from last fight, consider putting your Deflectobot second. This way you can reset the shields right after the Blaster's effect and save your Deflecto. Deadliest counter in my experience, however, are Taunted Leroys. Two of them can take out both Deflectobots, especially if the Leroys have been buffed enough to survive small tokens such as a Reborn Deflectobot or Automaton Death Rattle. I oftentimes prefer this over Blaster, because you can still get quite unlucky. The opponent can go first, destroy your Blaster, and you then destroy a mech, resetting the shields on the Deflectobots, effectively getting very little value out of your Blaster. Taunted Leroys often result in such a big win that the match is over on the spot, and there is no opportunity for your opponent to play around this. It is for this reason that I often put one of my weaker mechs first if I suspect a Leroy to be their only win condition. You now know how to handle the top 4. But how do you improve your placement even more? Your goal at the start of most games should be to get first place. The exception is if you're playing a mid-range hero and you have fewer tools available to go for a big spike early. Examples would be heroes such as Edwin or Drekthar. These guys can save health in the early and the mid game, but they fall off later because they're bad at generating early triples or power leveling. Examples of heroes that are great at going for first place would be Snake Eyes or Cenarius. Both of these heroes are more fragile. Snake Eyes only has 5 armor and Cenarius takes a lot of damage early, but they get additional gold in return. This gold allows you to level faster than the mid-range heroes, thus giving you access to more powerful scaling minions earlier in the game. As the game progresses, you'll receive more and more information as to what kind of a game you're playing and if it makes sense to continue pushing for first place. Did you hit a triple? Was a triple reward useful? Did you get good or bad matchups early? Were you able to save a lot of health? Did this allow you to go to 5 early, or did you have to stay a few turns on tier 4 to stabilize? What are the winning strategies in this lobby? Did you hit any of your key pieces? All of this information gives you a better idea of your position in the lobby. There is a point at which it's too late to scale. You can learn to identify this with experience. Think back of games where you easily won the lobby. Is your current situation similar to that, or are you quite far behind? Chances are that other people in the lobby have already hit their scaling cards and are ahead of you in the stat race. Once you've passed this point, it is much better to start focusing on the next fight. Buy the Leroy earlier, get armor so you can survive longer, buy the Blaster versus mechs. These investments will make your long-term scaling weaker. If you've already missed the window to compete with the high rollers in the lobby, it doesn't matter. A board of 100 100s is better than 50 50s, but they both get destroyed by a board of 300s. Leroy and Venoms, on the other hand, give you a chance to win. Tie, or at the very least, take less damage to improve your final standing in the lobby. I've had so many second places in a lobby where my board was the 4th strongest at best, simply because I identified my position early and started conserving health. The biggest high roller then did me a favor and knocked all the other players out, while I managed to survive my fight versus him because I had scam pieces and enough health. On the other hand, when you do have things going your way, you should be pressing your advantage. If you're on 31 health and your board is decent, do not stay an extra turn on tier 4. Grab high tier economy generators to snowball your advantage even further. Especially when I'm on 31 health, I'll sometimes take a super greedy turn setting up a bunch of economy and scaling, while selling my random 40-40 unit, which was the biggest minion on my board. I then take 15 damage, but because I sold the random stuff and kept the economy and scaling minions, my next turn is so good that my board is now much better, which allows me to stabilize on 16 health with a great board, often winning me the lobby without losing another fight. You could think about it this way: you'll get unlucky and lose some games where you had fairly little control over the outcome. In order to climb, you must take advantage of the games where luck is on your side. If you get this aspect of the game right, you'll consistently gain MMR. The most important skill, however, is don't choose your strategy in the early game. This advice alone can get you to 6,000 MMR. It is by far the most important skill in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. At the start of the game, you'll want to see which types are in and which strategies are available to you. You can use a deck tracker in-game or check the HS Replay website to know what the strongest strategies are in this game and which minions are core to that strategy. These core cards are incredibly important. Until you've secured them, you are not playing that type. If you have 2 party elementals on the board, you are not playing elementals yet. You'll need to secure Brand and Mana Surge for the scaling. Same thing for every other early game strategy. It is true that if you triple into the Mana Surge, it is better to already have party elementals on your board. But if you commit super early, say turn 4, you can now only hit 1/5 of the types available to you in this lobby. This makes it much less likely to hit a good composition. When you watch high level players, it looks like they're always getting lucky getting a good composition. That is because they're incredibly flexible. They could have the 2 party elementals and then triple into an Electron and start playing mechs, or an early pokey and move towards Coolboard. That is because the core pieces are what make or break your comp. Without them, your board will simply not scale anywhere near a board that does have these. So give yourself the maximum chance to hit a good board by staying flexible on what you want to play. This way, you've now opened up the other 80% of types previously locked out for you. It is true that there are usually stronger types in any meta. However, it is much better to play a strategy where you have all the core cards rather than forcing the theoretical strongest type with much less support. Let's say that demons are A tier and pirates are B or even C tier. If you have a great pirate setup, you can still beat a mediocre demon setup. And even if you're not going to win the lobby versus the person that did hit a great demon board, you'll still take a comfortable 2nd place rather than a 7th by forcing demons and blaming Bob for not giving you the cards you needed. This means that your early game buys could be type synergistic, but they don't have to be. If we continue on the 2 party elemental example, you should still be thrilled to pick up a Marquee Taker pair on tier 4. They'll give you free spells and enable mech strategies should you hit the core pieces later on. And even if you don't, the extra spells give you additional resources to hit the core cards of any of the 5 types available to you in this game. All of these skills work super well together. Because you don't commit to a strategy early on, you'll curve with your shops and not waste gold. Now you'll be able to level to tier 5 earlier more often because your board and economy are better. This means you'll hit the high tier core cards more easily. You'll know what kind of game you're playing by now, depending on if you hit your scaling cards early enough or not. If you didn't, you'll know how to counter the various boards from your opponents and do much better in the top 4 despite not high rolling. Now go out there and gain some MMR.